Welcome to the most complete and in-depth compilation of tricks for Samira ever made. I have gathered and compiled over 80 Samira tricks and tips, and you will see them all in this video. Most people think the champion is pretty straightforward once you learn a couple basic combos, but actually you would be surprised. The sheer amount of BS you can actually pull off on this champion once you master it is mind-boggling. And don't worry, we will have some fun delusional tricks at the end. But most of the tricks here will be actually incredibly useful for Samira players watching this. So grab a notebook, sit back, and let's get into it. Starting with some level 1 tips, you can use your taunt to check if somebody's in the bush in the first wave. But be careful, it will only play a sound and a tiny visual animation, but it won't give you any conquer stacks or passive stacks because you have no gold. That only happens when you have gold. You might wonder why would you want to do that instead of simply checking with Q, and the answer is some lanes you wanna start E like you see here. If your support has a level 1 knock-up and you have a chance to fight early instead of pushing the wave, I recommend you level up E level 1 for this. Leveling up Q is still like the standard early, especially if you're gonna trade, if you're gonna be pushing the wave, contesting level 2. If you have E level 1 and you're fighting a double ranged weak level 1 bot lane, I suggest that you also take Dark Harvest with sudden impact. Try to hold the bush level 1, wait for your support to come and then he will knock up. Using an auto attack and then E guarantees that you get a lot of auto attacks with the E attacks with buff level 1, and it's the best way to hold in a lane that you have a knock up. Once your Dark Harvest and sudden impact cooldowns are back, you can simply ping your support to go in again and you go for the knock up flash kill. If your support has multiple target stuns or knockups, is use a minion that's getting stunned first to use as initial dash, and that gets you in range to actually reach with a dash on the champion. As you might know, your passive is an auto attack reset, so if you want to push the wave really fast level 1 and you have a support like an Nautilus, you should auto attack every minion and then you auto attack another different minion and then the one that Nautilus hit, so you are constantly hitting twice and you push away really fast. Now I will teach you how to always guarantee an auto attack reset on your passive like you're seeing here. The key is that you have to input buffer your auto attack before the knock-up and then don't touch anything, then you can just Q and auto attack again. You can also use your passive to dodge incoming skill shots if you time it properly and you have the right angle and direction. It doesn't happen regularly, but it's nice to know. Similar to Yasuo ult, in some cases make sure that you don't instantly knock someone up, but instead delay your passive. That way you get more up time on the enemy, which allows teammates to get closer and cooldowns to come back, etc. This one is a fun fact, because of a story behind it. You can actually dash through small walls with your Samira passive when somebody's knocked up. In the LoL wiki it used to say you couldn't dash through terrain until I showed it in a video, and now that's gone from every description in every wiki. Samira can also use her knock-up passive while she's in the middle of a dash. Notice that the passive also shoots 6 bullets, okay? More on that later. As for the auto attack reset itself, you can actually one-tap assassins that go on you if you get 1 CC on them just by using this auto attack reset trick. With a passive auto attack reset, you can be as creative as you want. You can do this one-tap trick, but you can also do others, depending on when the knock-up hits. For example, auto attack before the knock-up hits, cast a Q, and then the reset. You can use this to get nice combos. If there's 2 targets, a bad way to combo would be to just use an auto attack and then an E, you will get only 2 stacks as you can see here. Instead, by using the multiple shots to your advantage, you can get 3 stacks. This is because during the dash, you're getting many of the hits of the passive. You can get 4 stacks this way, even 5 if you get a Q. And because it's 6 shots during the passive, in fact if you add more enemies during the dash, you can get an instant S tier with just auto-attacking an EQ. With this one, the sky's the limit. You can be as creative as you want really, there's infinite combos you can do. In this example, we are just getting S tier without using W, for example. In real games, I'm doing this combo all the time and it's really useful. You will see here that I'm getting S tier instantly by doing the dash on 2 people while I'm getting many shots. The bread and butter of Samira is auto attack EQ. In most of the clips and plays you will see, I will be doing that. Stand between 4 dummies and practice the auto attack EQ, trying to get as much DPS as possible. The auto attack has to be flying at the same time as you EQ. Now let's get into the Q ability. For example, notice how the Q won't reach the gate lane. First, you can actually Q and then dash, and this will move the Q so that it actually reaches the gate lane. It has a very slow cast animation and we can do so much with that mechanic. Believe it or not, the range Q works the same. Notice how I can't reach the dummy with my range Q. However, once I cast my Q and then after I dash into a close enemy, that will move my Q forward and now I can reach the dummy. but it gets even worse. We are casting the Q mid-dash, so you can actually do something called a drive-by Q, and this is just casting your range Q and then Eing to reach something that is behind. If you're wondering why would you ever QE instead of EQ though, there's actually good reasons. One of the main ones is that you will hit in a cone at the end, but the main one is that you get 3 stacks, as you can see here. Because the Q is so delayed, you're actually getting 3 stacks instead of the 2 that you would get from just the Q. Your Q follows you so much that you can actually change the whole direction of it just with a dash. As you can see here, we begin casting Q to the right, then we dash to the left and we hit every target in the left instead of the one in the right. Instead of the dash, we can also use our flash to also reposition our Q or change the direction. As you can see here, we begin casting Q, making it so at the very tip of the melee hits even though we're far away, or we can simply reposition the ranged one so that it reaches the guy in the back. For me, this is useful when the enemy is a champion with a dash, because if you EQ on a champion with a dash, sometimes you might miss it because they dash away from the Q damage. Another trick that I use a lot if we're both low HP early is to dash on a minion, Q flash and then dash out with a reset. This is so that they don't react with their flash because it's too fast. Since your Q is such a slow ability, you should always use it before getting hit by CC, so that you input buffer it and do damage through the CC. This is a very simple and easy mechanic that you should do on basically any champion you play. That way you're sort of useful despite getting CC'd. Being such a slow ability has drawbacks though. If an enemy is very fast and you cast your Q melee, they get out of the range and you don't do damage with it, as you can see here. Obviously, you can simply EQ, but there's 2 other ways you can solve this. Number 1 is that you can Q and then E, so the E will dash and move your Q forward like we saw before. The other one is to step back, then Q and auto, so the Q will be ranged instead of melee, and it will properly hit. And I want to give you a couple more hidden ones. One is that you can actually Q during the ult, and this one is extremely hard to replicate. So if you look at this clip, I'm Qing just before the ult finishes. The range of your range Q is a little bit fake. Once you're at the very edge of it, you can actually step out even further and it will hit, but it will play no sound, which is really weird. Finally, also make sure that you use your Q just before casting another ability or input, because the Q is slow, like we said, and it cannot be interrupted. So for example, Q and then W is something I do a lot early game. If you're out-attacking a faraway target, you will get 4 stacks doing this, because you can time your long-range auto so that it hits between the 2 hits of the W. You can also get multiple stacks if you Q on a ranged target and then you W on a close target without even moving, just like this. So most Samira players know that you should like out-attack then W then EQ, but the problem is that you can't W during the dash. You can only W after the dash like that, which only gives you 2 stacks. However, if you EQ and during the EQ you spam your W, you can actually get 4 stacks. It's really important, makes your combo faster, etc. Where I should have gotten 3 if I just EQ W. The trick that I want to give you is how to avoid this situation where if you're too close to a target and you W dash, you still get only 2 stacks because you started too close. It sounds simple, but the tip is to always step back during the cast of the W before you cast the E. And to not rush the combo too fast. I do this a lot every single game and most fights that I play. For example here, notice the Pantheon flash stunning me and I click back and I managed to get an instant S tier combo and then kill both of them. And same thing in this 1v1 against Katarina. Notice the click behind before pressing the E. Next is sort of a small one. You can cast your ult immediately after pressing W and it will cancel the W, you won't block anything else, but you can ult instantly. Next tip is close and dear to my heart because I think it's one of the main things that determines if you're a good Samira player, and that is how much you hold your W and not use it. A lot of Samira players try to use their W to combo for ult, or as soon as the enemy shows danger. I think this is a mistake in a lot of cases and a good Samira needs to hold W for the best moment possible. If you see this clip, for example, I think most Samira players would have W the Tristana bomb, so that we save the Lulu. But instead what I'm doing is saving it for the perfect moment to block an important CC like the Pike dash, so that he can't stun us, and then we go for the double kill. Although this is the opposite of a trick or a combo, I think it's very important to put it in a trick video so that you guys understand how important it is to not use your W. The main trick here is, before a fight even happens, press tab and imagine who are you gonna W in the fight. When you know that you will W to block CC, it's best if you get at least 1 or 2 stacks of your ult before going in with the W, because you won't use 2 hits of W to stack the ult. This means that your combo won't give you S tier, so you need to get ready beforehand. In this clip here, I'm baiting the enemies to come in. I know Nami's gonna ult if I go in, and I'm gonna flash and do the whole combo, having stacked my ult before, knowing that my combo won't give me full S stack otherwise. Finally, for W, if you spam your auto attack during the W EQ, sometimes you can input buffer an auto attack that comes out faster than it would otherwise. With a re, we have similar mechanics that we have with the Q. So using an auto attack and then E, if you have 2 targets aligned, is actually bad. You should auto attack the one in the back so that you get 3 stacks. Next, in a very similar way to Yasuo or Naila or Fizz Q, just click near the wall and then E, and you can do this on raptors or on enemies. The surprising part about this one is that you can go over very thick walls, even the thickest wall here in Dragon Pit, but be careful, if you do it from far away, obviously you hit the wall. This is nice to try to get away from plays after they're over in Dragon fights. Similar to W, how you position yourself before using your E is really important. So for example, when you're getting ganked or engaged on, just click behind you and then do a full combo so that you escape the gank, but also you get full stacks of your passive ult. In this clip against Naafiri, we're applying everything in one place. We are going over the wall, we are escaping the all-in, stacking our passive so that we get speed. Another trick, make sure you save your E to dodge important combos like the Alistar one, even though you got the reset before. One of my favorite things about E is that you can flash to do the damage on another target. As you can see here, when you flash, the damage will actually be done on the secondary target, as well as the first one. Combine this with a ranged auto attack to get 3 stacks instead of only 2. And combine this with Q to also do the Q damage to the second target, and this is one of the most powerful things you can do on Samira. If you auto attack range and then you EQ flash, you will get 4 stacks. I do this trick a lot on minions, so the enemy is gonna get caught off guard and we EQ flash to go for the kill. Also, if an enemy is out of range but another one is in range, you can do this to execute the farthest one and then go back for the kill on the main one. As you can see, the flash will do the damage and we continue the full combo. In early game situations, I use the E flash to do damage on another target a lot, like you see here on Thresh, and then position behind the Sylas to dash away from danger into the tower. Then click behind us to reposition W so that both hits of the W will do damage. One very important tip about the E as well is that if someone is out of your range to cast E, that doesn't mean they are out of your range to hit E. Sometimes somebody will be out of your range, but if you hit a minion or a target that is in the way, they are actually in the range of the damage, despite being out of range to cast it. I use this a lot, because when somebody's trying to space me with higher range or movement speed, I do this trick to actually be able to hit them when if you cast the E on them, you wouldn't be able to hit them. Next is one that you have seen me spam throughout all of this video, but I haven't explained until now, and it's one of my signature moves on Samira, and it's the fact that you can input buffer your reset of the E before you actually get the kill, and when you get the kill, the game will remember that you pressed E, even though it was on cooldown, and it will instantly cast it upon getting the kill, even if you are midway through another dash. The key is to cast your second E, even though it's still on cooldown and you haven't gotten the reset yet. The game will remember, it's called an input buffer. Doing this trick, we can extend the E range and do a double E extended range, as you can see here. You can also do an Illuminati triangle E if you input buffer it in another direction. Notice how, even though I'm still dashing on the first target and I haven't gotten the reset, I'm already clicking on the last target. In this clip, we're gonna do it back and forth, so that then we get the reset to get out of the tower range. Overall, I'm doing this in basically every fight, to get to hit more than one target and to get really clean resets. But you don't just do it for a double E, this input buffer works for just normal resets. So in this clip, I'm trying to input buffer my E on another target so that I dodge the Zyra E upon getting the kill on Lux. As soon as my auto attack is flying on the air to Lux, I'm already input buffering my E to the right, thus dodging the Zyra route. You can do some fun, flashy tricks with this, such as this in and out Q, and this one is really hard to do. One of my favorite things to do with this input buffer trick is to E back and forth, which looks really weird and I haven't seen any other Samira do this before. Last, you can use this input buffer of the E reset to dash on a tower and go for a dive. I use towers to dive a lot and enemies won't expect it. Similar to the Q, you should input buffer your E to dodge CC if you want. So against champions with very slow CC or predictable like Karma, I do this. Just be careful because E will get cancelled if the CC is a knockup, which is not the case for Q. You could Q through knockups, but you can't E through knockups. You can only E through CCs like Karma Root or Varus ult. In this case it was a bit accidental, but it's good to show you that you can E through the Varus ult. And speaking of input buffers, it's time to teach you probably the most important one for Samira, that you can auto-attack during your ult. And this is incredibly important because this auto can crit, this auto will apply Infinity Edge, this auto will do like 500 plus damage late game and secure all those resets that you need. Performing this is quite reliable and easy. All you have to do is E or EQ during your ult, and during that dash you have to spam as many times as you can the click, like the auto attack, on the target that you want to hit. This can be ranged or melee, it doesn't matter. For real though, practice this one because I think without this the champion is not even viable. To explain a couple of the most important combos that you need to know, the most common one is the one that every Samira main learns when they start playing the champion, which it's called like the fast or instant S tier stack. To do this we're using the W dash trick to hit the W twice. There is also a variation of this exact combo using the trick number 35, which was casting W during E. Otherwise, early game I find myself using the slowest version of this, which is to W after you go in, so that the W actually blocks something, and because stacking your ult fast early game is not that important because it doesn't do a lot of damage. Then we have the one that we saw earlier, which is using the Q dash combo to get 3 stacks instantly, and then we're going to cancel our W with our ult. This one is faster than the one that everybody knows. You can do the exact same trick but without melee Q, if you instead ranged auto on the back target and you then EQ. The reason this is an useful combo is that you can actually stack S without having W up if it's on cooldown, just by hitting before you go in, if you're for example approaching a fight from far away. Both versions of this will work if you're just walking into a fight. Now this is the one that I call the Sagi combo, and it's what to do if the targets are not aligned. In that case, what you need to do is to flash your E damage into the other target. It's probably one of the hardest combos to do with Samira. You can do both versions with a melee Q or with a ranged shot attack, and you will stack your ult in like 0.3 seconds if you do it really clean. And we also have a variation of the Sagi combo using the W cast mid dash. Before we get into the silly part of the video, I would like to ask you to like and subscribe, guys. It helps me a lot, and unlike my coaching sessions, it is free. But if you also want to support in a way that isn't free, then check out my Patreon. I have updates and information for every patch, as well as tier list that I curate myself. But I also have 1000 plus coaching session votes for every lane, every champion and every rank. So remember that taunt that throws the coin we talked about at the beginning? There's actually a bug that a lot of Samira players know, which involves pressing the taunt and at the same time trying to auto-attack a target. If you do that, Samira will be locked in this like machine gun type auto-attack animation and the coin will visually come out instantly, but that's only visual, it doesn't really come out. However, after a couple seconds the real coin will come out, it's just that it will be invisible. It's a good way to BM, and that's first. Also, during this animation you're locked out of pressing buttons other than moving or dashing, but anything that you press will be remembered by the game. You can do combos where you start this BM thing and you input buffer your whole combo, and then suddenly a coin and the whole combo will come out. Wait, you guys need to use your hands to get a steer on Samira? Look at this. No hands. Well, you can also ult from inside of Tamkench, which is the same as Miss Fortune and you might have seen in those viral TikToks. But my favorite Tamkench combo is that if you do this bug of buffering your coin, then Tamkench can carry you away and you will throw the coin at the new target. You can also ult through Bart's tunnel. And another favorite of mine, if Ilaoi grabs someone's soul, you can use that to stack your ult and then go on the back with a fully stacked ult at the end, because the soul will give you stacks of both passive and conqueror. If you reached all the way to the end here, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Make sure to check my Patreon, my coaching sessions, and leave a comment. Tell me if I missed any combos or what champion would you like to see next. See you next video!